Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beneath the Ether. I'm your host, Randall McFarland, and the last episode I talked all about rank certificates and people cross-promoting, and some people who actually weren't cross-promoted per se. They promoted themselves and made it appear that they had been promoted. So this week I wanted to talk about lineage. So why is lineage important? Well, lineage is important, especially when you're in part of a much older style. Who your instructor is, who their instructor is, and who that instructor was way before you. Maybe some of you didn't even train, but it just shows that you have a legitimate teaching from people who are recognized in the style, basically. So as of now, I have lineage through Baron Shepherd in Kajukenbo. So before that, I would say that my lineage was through Gary Lee. However, there's a few holes in the story with lineage with Gary Lee. See, with Baron Shepherd, I can trace. Master Shepherd talks about his teacher, which was Sam Lone Wolf, and Sam Lone Wolf, he knows who Sam Lone Wolf's teacher was, and who Sam Lone Wolf's teacher was, and that's lineage. However, with Gary Lee, there's a little bit of problem. There's let's go back to when I first started. I had visited Gary Lee's school that was over in Sugarland. I walked in. Now, I believed I was a black belt under a different instructor. That's still questionable. I can't actually prove any of it because the guy who that trained me, he passed away. I think it was the beginning of this year. So he was, apparently before all that, he was very sick. And I tried to reach out to him, but I could never get in contact. And now I have nothing. So I show up at Gary Lee School with a black belt. And he puts me through the ringer. I'm out of shape, and I get owned. I'm not going to deny it. I got run down. But in all fairness, the guy who ran me down, the guy who put me through the ringer, he had a good 10, 12 years younger than me, and had been training since he was like 8, something like that. He'd been training for a long time. So he was he was used to doing all that. And me, I had been out of practice. I didn't train every day. I'd out of shape. So after I get run through the ringer, Gary Lee points to a picture on the wall, and it's of this man I'm going to show you. And that is the founder of Aikido, by the way. Gary Lee tells me, that's my teacher, and I can, in all honesty, let you walk out of here with a black belt and dishonor my instructor. Okay, so I thought it was pretty cool because, hey, my instructor was the student of a famous other person. That's pretty cool. It wasn't even true. Gary Lee put out a book in 2011 called Memoirs of American Samurai. In it, he talks about his teacher, Toshiro Sensei. That's all you know. That's all you know. There's no what he was taught, what style it was, what the background was, who was Toshiro's teacher. Now, why am I making a big deal of this? Because I have sat right next to Gary Lee when he has questioned people. Who's your teacher? What style did you learn? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just going off, and then he'll be like, you didn't learn real karate. He would do that every time. Didn't matter who you were, who your teacher was. If he didn't know him, you didn't learn real karate. That was his thinking. I think it's still his thinking. So why is there holes in this story? If you ever are around Gary Lee, I don't encourage it, but if you are around him and you hear him talk about his past, he's like, I was a Japanese kid. My parents were Japanese, and they died in a plane crash. And my uncle raised me, and then he traded me for some beer to this karate instructor because I wanted to learn karate. And so I lived with my karate instructor. He lived with the guy. And all he knows his name is Toshiro. And I think it's coincidental that he picked Toshiro when one of a big actor in samurai movies is Toshiro Mifune. I don't think that's a coincidence. He says he learned on the island. There was a couple. That time there was quite a few martial arts going around. One of them being Kempo, Kosho Kempo to be exact, and Kajukenbo would have been pretty prominent about that time as well. As I think I may be wrong about that. So what was it that he was being taught? Who is this Toshiro Sensei? Well, who was his teacher? I'm pretty sure it wasn't Adriano Imperato. I'm quite sure it wasn't James Matose, the guy who basically made Kosho Kempo Roof a very popular martial art. So the lineage kind of ends with Gary and this mysterious Toshiro Sensei. It reminds me of Frank Duke's story Tanaka Sensei, and nobody can find anything about this Tanaka Sensei either. Tiger Tanaka. It's a similar story to that, except that I don't think Frank Dukes was orphaned and raised by Tanaka Sensei. The other thing is when going back to Gary Lee's parents, they died in a plane crash. That I don't know how true that story is. He claimed he was orphaned. His parents were Japanese, and he was raised by a Chinese family. That's why his last name is Lee. I don't know. There's so many things that just make me doubt that story. And then there's after he's trained. Now, mind you, Gary Lee says he's been training with this Toshiro Sensei since he was about 8 years old, something like that, 8, 10, something. It's a very young age, and he's trained with this Toshiro Sensei for years, and he leaves the island at the age of 18 and comes to the mainland with just a surfboard and his black belt. That's his story. A surfboard and his black belt. No certificate, no rank certificate, nothing to prove the rank that he had. There's just a lot of questionable things there. So, like, I am proud now, very proud now to be a part of the Baron Shepherd, Sam Lone Wolf lineage. I'm also in that lineage is Tony Lassett. I'm not going to go through all the names because I don't want people to copy that lineage and falsify things. There are people who will do it, and I don't want that to happen. What that will do to me, what that will do for me, is that will basically muddy Baron Shepherd's name. It will muddy Sam Lone Wolf's name. I don't want their names muddied. I don't want their names to be tarnished because somebody got an ego. So that's why I'm not mentioning all of it, because it doesn't need to be all mentioned. But with Gary Lee, it stops with him. I mean, how do you train underneath a guy for several years and only know him as Toshiro Sensei? Nothing else. And supposedly, I mean, why didn't he at least, like, once he was able to go back to the island every now and then and visit this Toshiro Sensei? He doesn't do that. He never talks about him ever again. He leaves the island and that's it. He doesn't go back to his teacher and show him, hey, look, this is what I've done with the art you showed me. And the only other time I heard about him going back to Hawaii, he was a 6th degree black belt, and he goes back and magically produces a 10th degree black belt. I don't even remember what it was. It just big old, I remember it said diploma, big old diploma with people's signatures on it. I don't know. If you're in a traditional art, if you're studying a traditional art, always try to find out who your instructor is and follow the lineage for the style. If it's not, it doesn't follow any kind of straight line path, you can't trace your lineage back somehow to the roots of the system, they're lying. I'm going to tell you right now, they're lying. with Kajukenbo, they only go back, I think, 2 or 3 generations. So 2 or 3 people in the lineage. So there's only so much, but they can usually trace, once you get to back 2 or 3 people in your lineage, they can usually trace it from that person back to whoever. So they don't need any more than that. So there you have it. If you're training in martial arts, make sure you just know who your instructor's instructor is. Make sure it's legitimate, that they're not teaching you McDojo stuff, because it gets very tiresome when you're around people who demand that of other people but yet can't defend their own. You don't want to be in that position where you're asking somebody their lineage and you don't even know yours. I found it very difficult up to this point to be able to defend the lineage of my instructor. I mean, I studied under Daryl Craig, and he could tell you who his teacher was and who his teacher's teacher was. About the only person that sort of did that, but didn't really, because he was actually forming his own style, was Ben Couch. And he to form his style, he borrowed from a lot of other things that he trained in. He trained in Aikido, he trained in Taekwondo, he trained in karate, he trained in a lot of things. So I have all the respect for Ben Couch. So I'm not saying anything bad about him. He formed his own style because he was teaching Taekwondo when I met him, and he's like, it doesn't work, we're going to teach something. I'm going to teach this because this does. I had all the appreciation for that, because, hey, if it doesn't work, it doesn't need to be taught. So anyway, I'm getting off subject. Make sure you find out your lineage. Make sure you know who your teacher's teacher was, and follow it into the roots of the style. Unless it's someone like Ben Couch, but he even validated all the information that he did with where he trained and the styles that he trained in. So if they do that, if they can back up what they trained in and how they trained, and the styles that they did train and how they're integrating it all together, don't worry about the lineage. You're part of a new generation. So there you have it. I know it sounds like I am just slamming on Gary Lee right now, but I hate to say it, this has been a long time coming. He'll probably tell you, if you talk to him, he'll probably tell you I'm just a disgruntled student, but this isn't personal. These are things that he says, and he has a hard time backing up. There's no proof of the things that he says, and yet he demands the proof from other people for the things that he wants out of them. Don't get around people like that. That's my advice. Yeah. So that's it for tonight. I hope you enjoyed these podcasts. I'm enjoying doing them. This isn't part of the Sam Lone Wolf story, because this is my own personal experience. I actually have Gary Lee's book, and that's where I got the information about one of the certificates with Sam Lone Wolf's name on it was out of his book. So, yeah, be careful, keep your head up, keep your head on a swivel. We're here in Houston, and it's been crazy here over the weekend, and just not that long ago, we had kids out in the parking lot shooting a BB gun around. I mean, not a real gun, but still, you fire a BB at someone's window and you break it. Just irresponsible. So, crazy generation, crazy times we're living in. Keep your head on a swivel. Be safe out there. And hey, we'll talk at you next time. All right, thanks. Bye.